So thank you very much. We are still waiting for some people to come back from lunch, but I think we will still start this session on governance and global federation of Diamond Open Access. It is basically a continuation from the discussion we've had on the first day, yesterday, but also kind of taking into account what we've heard in the panels that happened yesterday afternoon and then also throughout the day today. And I have to say it really was a lot of very, very good presentations, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good practices that I think we need to take into account while we are talking about governance and global federation of all of these different Diamond Open Access initiatives. So I have an excellent panel here with me today. And I will start with Sharla Lair, who is the senior strategist at Lyrasis from the United States. So,
hello, everybody. It's a small room. I feel like it's echoing. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be speaking with this panel and with all of you. I work at Lyrasis, which is a nonprofit consortium based in the United States that serves a community of libraries, museums, and archives. Part of my role is to administer the Lyrasis Open Access Community Investment Program, or OACIP. It's a community-driven funding infrastructure that enables multiple stakeholders to evaluate and collectively fund Diamond Open Access journals published by university presses, library publishers, and nonprofit independent publishers, such as societies or scholar-led initiatives. OACIP has come far in a very short period. Since OACIP launched in 2020, 77 organizations from 7 countries have supported the funding of 11 Diamond journals through OACIP. These 77 organizations include 3 academic departments, 4 library consortia, 68 individual academic libraries, a national research center, and a museum. This OACIP funding community has collectively committed over $1.35 million to support 11 journals for 5 years. And my hope is that this will grow to $1.75 million by the end of this year as we finish out the current campaign. You can learn more about OACIP at the library or on the Global Summit website, where there is a poster featuring this program along with other programs that many of you represent. Lyrasis is by no means the only organization administering a program like this. Open Library of Humanities has been sustainably facilitating collaborative funding of Diamond Open Access journals for 10 years. There are funding programs similar to OACIP that have recently emerged, like TIB's Koala project in Germany and JISC's Open Access Community Framework in the United Kingdom. And others are emerging, including DIAMAS. This simultaneous invention merely reveals the kind of transparent, collaborative, and principle-aligned funding infrastructure that our global community really needs to sustain open scholarship. Lyrasis is actively engaging with these programs and currently making plans to realize our shared vision of a distributed global funding network so that these journals can access an international funding community. The Global Federated Network to support Diamond Open Access is not just in our hopes and dreams, it is already forming. Yesterday, we all saw Pierre and Johan's presentation about what a Global Federated Network to support Diamond Open Access could look like. For those of us who believe that such a thing should exist, I imagine that for the most part, it made a lot of sense and probably matched what many of us imagine based on our understanding of other international efforts, such as the Red Cross or even the likes of large international businesses like Amazon. We can all collaborate and build something based on Pierre and Johan's model, but before we do, I must ask, why? Why should there be a global federated network for Diamond Open Access? Why should we go through so much effort and resources and hard work? Because building and maintaining things, especially collectively, is really difficult. In addition to OACIP, several entities such as Redalyc, Érudit, and now DIAMAS have or are developing broad infrastructures and capacity centers to support Diamond Open Access. Although some of these programs have scaled to a national level and beyond, they still have isolated impact. They must constantly compete, even with each other, for funding and have to prove their value to continue to exist as an individual organization as though they actually existed in a vacuum, which no organization ever does. We have mistakenly built entire systems off of atomized and individual effort, when in reality, we are all interconnected, dealing with complex shared problems. No single organization is responsible for any major problem, nor can any single organization solve it. In most cases, in scholarly communication, reaching an effective solution requires stakeholders involved in the problem to learn and then change their behavior in order to create a solution. And even then, the solution isn't necessarily the right answer. Even if it were, no single entity has the resources or authority to bring about the change that is needed. We need to shift from achieving isolated impact to collective impact. Shifting from isolated to collective impact is not merely a matter of encouraging more collaboration or partnerships. It requires a deep, systemic approach to impact that focuses on the relationships between organizations and the collective progress towards shared objectives. It also requires a collective of nonprofit organizations that have the skills, resources, and healthy funding to pull together and coordinate the specific elements necessary for collective action to succeed. Efforts toward collective impact don't happen often, not because it is impossible, but because it is so rarely attempted. There have been a few successful collective impact initiatives that provided me inspiration for this presentation. One I would like to highlight in particular is actually outside of scholarly communication. It is called STRIVE, a nonprofit organization in the United States that has brought together local leaders to tackle the student achievement crisis and improve education throughout the city of Cincinnati and surrounding areas. In the 4 years since it launched, STRIVE partners have improved student success in dozens of key areas across 3 large public school districts. STRIVE made progress where others failed because a core group of community leaders decided to let go of their individual agendas in favor of a collective approach to improving student achievement. More than 300 leaders of local organizations agreed to participate, including the heads of influential private and corporate foundations, city government officials, school district representatives, the presidents of 8 universities and community colleges, and the executive directors of hundreds of education-related nonprofit and advocacy groups. These leaders realized that fixing one point on the educational continuum, such as better after-school programs, wouldn't make much difference unless all parts of the continuum improved at the same time. No single organization, however innovative or wealthy, could accomplish this alone. So how did they govern this collective? They had 5 conditions that together produced true alignment and led to powerful results. I propose that we consider adopting similar components to complement the governance of a global federated network to support Diamond Open Access. They are: 1, common agenda. Collective impact requires all participants to have a shared vision for change, one that includes a common understanding of the problem and a joint approach to solving it through agreed upon actions. Look at all of us in this room. We believe we are working on the same problem, but have repeatedly discovered in our discussions this week that this is not always the case. Each of us has a slightly different definition of the problem and the ultimate goal. These differences are easily ignored when we work independently on isolated initiatives, but our differences splinter our efforts and undermine the impact of scholarly communication as a whole. Number 2, a shared measurement system. Agreement on a common agenda is pointless without agreement on the ways success will be measured and reported. Collecting data and measuring results consistently at the community level and across all participating organizations not only ensures that all efforts remain aligned, it also enables the participants to hold each other accountable and learn from each other's successes and failures. 3, Mutually reinforcing activities. Collective impact initiatives depend on a diverse group of stakeholders working together, not by requiring that all of us do the same thing, but by encouraging each of us to undertake the specific set of activities at which we excel in a way that supports and is coordinated with the actions of everyone else. The power of collective action does not come from the sheer number of participants or the duplication of their efforts, but from the coordination of their differentiated activities through a mutually reinforcing plan of action. 4, continuous communication. Developing trust among multiple stakeholders is a monumental challenge. What we are proposing here in this room today will require time, and a lot of it. We need time to build trust with each other. We need probably several years of regular meetings to build up enough experience with each other to recognize and appreciate the common motivation behind our different efforts. Even the process of creating a common vocabulary takes time. Communication isn't just about making sure that information is shared. It is the bedrock for building trust, relationships, and resiliency. And then last, 5, backbone support organizations. Creating and managing collective impact requires a separate organization and staff with a very specific set of skills to serve as the backbone for the entire initiative. Coordination takes time, and none of your organizations has any to spare. The expectation that collaboration can occur without a supporting infrastructure is one of the most frequent reasons why it fails. The backbone organization requires a dedicated staff separate from the participating organizations who can plan, manage, and support the initiative through ongoing facilitation, technology and communications support, data collection and reporting, and handling the many logistical and administrative details needed for the initiative to function smoothly. This backbone would be only a part of the community-led participatory governance structure, but key for turning ideas into reality. So, back to my first question of why. Why should we build a global federated network to support Diamond Open Access? We have talked a lot about challenges these last few days, about tenure and promotion, challenges in changing scholar behavior, revenue models, and how the corporate profiteering publishers are using them. While we do need to understand what challenges us, our focus determines our reality. I don't want the reason to build a global network to be about what we are against, but what we are for. Rather than worry about what might happen if we do not act, what if we focused on what might happen if we act and are successful? I have many answers to the why question, so that we might influence a more equitable distribution of wealth across disciplines and across geographical boundaries, so that more diverse voices might be expressed through scholarly research, that we can make huge advances to a global culture of open science, so we can witness real-world impact in solving many of our shared global challenges, to make content, journals, and books, HSS and STEM, available to orphan and independent scholars, to high school students like my son, who are in research-focused programs training the next generation of scholars, to the general public who want to take control of their cancer treatment, to policymakers influencing economies, political structures, and environmental policies in each of our countries and jurisdictions. And that by making content open access, we are also providing affordable learning materials for students. There are so many reasons why we should build a global federated network to support Diamond Open Access. I'm curious in what ways all of our respective answers to this why might align. Whatever they may be, my hope is that we keep our collective answers to this question at the heart of all next steps that we take together. Our collective why will strengthen our connections. The way that things are connected tells us more than the things themselves. It is our relationships to each other where the magic lives and our collective potential lies. If we believe in a world in which a diverse array of scholarship is equitably available to all who wish to access it, and if we believe that the current stakeholders, libraries, consortia, institutions, including research and teaching and learning institutions, publishers, funding agencies, infrastructures, if we're the ones who can deliver on that vision, then it is our collective responsibility to seek out, connect, align, empower, and sustainably fund those who are committed to leading in a way that will more likely bring that vision to life. Thank you.
This was excellent. Thank you very much for this presentation. I think it was a wonderful introduction to this panel, but also kind of bringing us back as to why we are all here and why we are thinking about a federated network of Diamond Open Access. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for bringing us back to the reason why we're here, and also bringing up this issue of trust that we have already heard throughout the day today and yesterday, and the importance of building trust among the different actors that will be part, hopefully, of this future network. So thanks again very much for that. The next speaker is Tanja Niemann, who is the Executive Director of Érudit from Canada. Tanja, the floor is yours. Any addition to the collective why from your side will be welcome.
Thank you very much. I have slides. Okay, they are there. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel, really at the end of also of the second day, where I hope can contribute to how to move forward more concretely. So I'm very happy to contribute and to be here. I am the Executive Director of Érudit. It's a Canadian journal platform hosted at University of Montreal in the province of Quebec. It's supported through a consortium of 3 universities, and we operate entirely on research grants within our supporting universities, which also offer their resources to this mission, which ensures then on the other hand the independence and non-commercial mission of what we do around this platform. We host a yearly growing collection of currently close to 350 independent scholarly journals in social sciences social sciences and humanities. They are in open access and Diamond Open Access, no fees for authors or readers, and some of them still use a moving wall, but we work with them to transition towards the full open access model. And this is one of our missions, also really to have an environment which allows this transition for the journals and give them support, infrastructure, and sustainability. I will not deep dive into Érudit and these activities because we have talked about this on Tuesday already, and we have heard this morning also from eScholarship. I think these activities are really very similar to what we do about Redalyc, Open Edition, SciELO, AGEL, JStage, and so on. I want briefly to talk to you about Coalition Publica, which is the name of a Canadian partnership which we have established 5 years ago together with the Public Knowledge Project, hosted at Simon Fraser University on the other end of Canada, and which develops, of course, OGS that you know. So together we collaborate a lot with the Canadian academic libraries that host a lot of these journals on OGS on the academic library servers. And on a practical note, just to say, together we develop this infrastructure which is built out of this combination of decentralized open OGS hosting of journals amongst the country, and then with a single central access point to showcase, actually to create a vitrine of the Canadian content and the indexing and visibility strategy around it. We also have a funding model to help journals to develop sustainability around that. We work very closely with the academic libraries and consortia on that. It's called the Partnership for Open Access, where we over the years transitioned our commercial agreements, which were similar to licensing agreements, towards partnership agreements, where we said we would like to work with the journals to transition more and more journals to open access. But we still need the funds, and we don't want you to free ride once we have, withdrawn the embargo on these journals, or when we bring on more journals which are already OA, we would like to continue to support them through this model as well. So we work very closely with the Canadian Research Knowledge Network on this, and we develop that together, but we also talk to the French consortium Couperin, and we are really looking forward to develop this model much more with other contributors as well. In terms of contribution towards the theme of this panel about governance, I did my homework, and I want to share with you here how cooperatives, what is actually the definition of a cooperative. In Quebec, we are kind of champions of working with cooperative models, so I thought it would interesting just to share it and to look at it as maybe an inspiration. So cooperatives are people-centered enterprises, owned and controlled and run by and for their members to realize their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations. I think the principles that are around cooperatives are really something which is very similar to what we have talked about and what you also just mentioned in your talk, Sharla. So I leave that here just for an inspiration and maybe further reflection on it after this. I also want to look at a point which has been raised this morning about the value proposition of what we do around the existing diamond and open infrastructure things. I think what we do is very well, and what is our value proposition here is engaging with national and regional partners, connecting with the local communities, have these formal and informal networks, which are really very important in the research communication system, responding to national and regional priorities, managing multilingualism and the environments which are tied to these contexts, providing services at scale which individuals cannot afford to deliver on. And how could an international federation help to this is really to bring the additional layer to it, I think, lending clout and prestige to the conversation. We were talking a lot about, leveraging this Diamond OA journal, bringing more power, more puissance to it. Aligning policy conversations has been mentioned this morning also. Without the policy context around these infrastructures that we do, we are much more weak, I think, as if we were like part of a national strategy where the investments are designed in order to reinforce the infrastructure and services that are delivered on the operational level. So, and the second point is also this federation, I think, and it has been raised a lot, is influencing the redistribution of the library budgets towards what we do in Diamond OA. And yes, other things mentioned before, endorsing norms, standards, best practices for Diamond open access, bringing us to an international exchange around these things, and lobby for open infrastructure and science as a common good. So now I really would like to look at some points which I think are important when we talk about governance. And the first one, which is really very important for me, is to talk about inclusiveness. Beyond any governance structure that we can imagine around this federated governance here, is that the humans who are involved in this need to have and to need to build extensive capacity of listening, of sensitivity to the context of the other partners. It seems crucial to me to demonstrate a huge amount of cultural sensitivity, engagement, active listening, empathy, and respect for each other's environment. And that is a true human challenge. This means also that the group needs to remain very open to welcome new members and to include and not make sure that nobody feels excluded of this. overall, inclusiveness should play a huge role. And that's the same for the multilingualism, I think. In Canada, we evolve in a bilingual context. This comes with numerous challenges around this, an additional layer of complexity always, but it also is very rich, and it can be a real driver for thinking differently and for imagining new approaches when we work together, collaborate together, or imagine even governance structures. And I really would like to give a shout out actually to the organization here at this conference, because we see at Redalyc that speakers are talking in different languages, in their own languages, and that is really very rare. I don't see that a lot when I go to conferences, and this is of great and high value. So thank you for doing this in this way. I think I really would enjoy that, to see that much more in conferences in the future. So Diamond OA has this value proposition there on multilingualism as well, because it's an important one. The Diamond ecosystem needs to evolve in a multilingual way, and in order to distinguish itself also from what is going on in commercial publishing, which is mainly in English only. And I also would like to talk about complexity. And here I will take the pyramid from Pierre and Johan. And I have no doubt that the general idea and ambitions around this pyramid are what we need to do and where we should go. So I really, I think this is a super good image. But I fear that currently it doesn't look like that, and I think we all know that also. Maybe it looks much more like this. And I really don't bring that up to be negative. I just want us to think about it. We have discussed a lot about diversity and different contexts. I think we cannot just ignore the complexity of it, but if we do, we just risk getting caught up in this complexity also. So if we only focus on our problems and our differences, it's going to be very hard. And I think this is a real concern, because how much time do we have, to move forward from here, knowing that there are so many initiatives and so many different contexts and models. I'm really asking myself, how are we going to be able to move with speed and with scale? Because I think this is, in the context we are in, really currently very important. We have seen the big publishers coming up with the APCs and with the transformative agreements, and what's the next step? With what are they coming up, while we are going to sort out our differences and our, ways to find our way to go forward. So to identify the common goals and objectives that unite us, which are maybe at high level, I think is one of the important points that we need to tackle in this governance structure very quickly. And finally, another concern also, which touches to what we have said here before. Also, we are in this OA, Diamond OA infrastructure is very fragile, I think. A lot of us operate on a shoestring. I think this morning the image of the head above the water has been mentioned. My main task is to make sure that the team that we have and that the infrastructure that we build in Canada is maintained, operated, responds on a daily 24/7 basis. So when we go forward now and creating still different layers of services or different layers of governance, going to other committees, these are all things that are going to be added to the already fragile situation and the overload that we all have on our shoulders. So we really, if we want to be very engaged in this program, in this process, we need to find the means and the time and the resources to go forward from here as well. And I will end with that. Merci beaucoup.
Great. This was great, Tanja. Very, very much appreciated. And I like the way you've added to the collective why, you've added to the collective how, which is also very important. You've added principles to Sharla's conditions, and I think all of that is very well noted and needs to be taken into account. So again, thank you very much for that. I think our next speaker is online. Antonio Sánchez Pereyra from SciELO. Antonio, can you hear us?
¿Escuchan? Hola,
Great.
hola.
The floor
¿No se
is
escucha?
yours. Yes, we can hear you very well.
Yes. Muy buenas tardes a todos y todas y muchas gracias por la invitación y por hacer partícipes a SciELO. Yo vengo representando a la red SciELO, que es una red regional. En realidad yo trabajo muy cerca de Toluca, en la Ciudad de México, en la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, en el proyecto SciELO México, pero no me fue posible asistir presencialmente. Les quiero compartir una presentación. Voy a tratar de ajustarme a los 10 minutos. Ahí se puede ver. ¿Sí? Bueno, algunas generalidades de la red SciELO. Es una red que abarca ya 3 continentes si consideramos además de países latinoamericanos, España, Portugal y Sudáfrica. Consta de 16 colecciones de revistas nacionales que incluyen revistas de acceso abierto oro y diamante, además de colecciones temáticas sobre salud pública y una colección de libros en acceso abierto. Y más recientemente se han incorporado un repositorio de datos, SciELO Data, y otro de preprint, SciELO Preprints. SciELO, la red SciELO está conformada por estas 16 países. En realidad, actualmente hay 15 colecciones nacionales vigentes. Si tomamos en cuenta que lamentablemente Venezuela no ha podido continuar actualizando su colección. Y detrás de estas colecciones hay una gran cantidad de ministerios de ciencia, universidades nacionales, que son las que están financiando las colecciones SciELO nacional. La estructura de gobierno, por así llamarlo, en cada país, que hay una estructura nacional, consta de 3 elementos: alguna institución que se encargue del financiamiento, del mantenimiento de la infraestructura, del personal, y que por lo tanto lleve a cabo esta tarea de ejecución de tareas, de mantenimiento de servidores, etcétera, y lleva a cabo la actividad de coordinación nacional, y un comité científico que avale, que soporte a esta colección nacional. Y hay una estructura de gobierno regional de la red que es realmente bastante ligera. Se organiza a través de reuniones online, donde se toman decisiones colectivas, una reunión presencial cada 5 años, como la que acaba de ocurrir hace unas pocas semanas, que la red SciELO cumplió 25 años, y un comité asesor regional para toda la red. Hay que decirlo, SciELO tiene una experiencia entonces como una federación regional. Ya ha funcionado como una federación, y esto ciertamente no es algo sencillo. Entre los países hay desigualdades. No todos los países llevan la misma velocidad, no todos los países tienen la misma capacidad de participación, la misma infraestructura. En este sentido, es claro que la red SciELO tiene a SciELO Brasil como su líder y fundador, y ciertamente ahí hay una simetría que sería deseable que en algún momento se emparejara, se homologara, pero eso también expresa una realidad socioeconómica. Así son nuestros países, así es la realidad socioeconómica, y bueno, SciELO ha mostrado una gran resiliencia en 25 años de trabajar y apuntar a una homogeneidad deseable bajo unas condiciones reales. Otra noticia importante, bueno, antes de seguir con el tema de gobernanza, es que en este aniversario 25 de SciELO, SciELO se ha pronunciado por apoyar la ciencia abierta, en particular alineándose con la recomendación de la UNESCO para la ciencia abierta, impulsar la ciencia abierta en cualquier área de incidencia que se tenga, en el caso de SciELO, empujar a las revistas en este sentido. En SciELO se apoyan más los modelos descentralizados que los centralizados, y además, apoyándonos en UNESCO, la promoción de capacidades y estructuras igualitarias. Otro punto que tiene que ver más con el proceso técnico, pero que a mí me parece muy importante, es entender bien la relación entre las revistas y SciELO. Desde mi punto de vista, el acceso abierto diamante nace con las revistas. El acceso abierto diamante no lo hace posible SciELO. SciELO existe porque existen revistas diamantes que se sostienen ellas mismas. A mí me gusta una vieja dualidad muy bibliotecaria que hablaba de las fuentes primarias y las fuentes secundarias. La revista es para SciELO la fuente primaria. Es ahí donde se realiza el proceso de dictaminación de doble ciego, es ahí donde se realiza la maquetación, es ahí donde se requiere ese personal especializado en el proceso de evaluación y formación editorial, y obviamente ahí nace el pivote del acceso abierto, en particular del latinoamericano, que ha tenido en el OJS, como todos sabemos, en América Latina, un lugar de generalización, de empoderamiento. Entonces sí, SciELO es un repositorio, una biblioteca que reúne revistas, un índice, y tiene también un rol como publicador, como editor. Por eso hay una relación aquí más compleja. Algunas personas no entienden en este sentido por qué SciELO pide más que Scopus y Redalyc, y que Web of Science. Porque SciELO juega un papel de promotor de la profesionalización, busca impulsar iniciativas o metodologías internacionales, aplicarlas en la región, el XML, el HTML, la interoperabilidad, los metadatos. Entonces hay esta relación dual, somos una fuente secundaria, pero impulsamos también ciertos roles como editores. Hay esta imbricación o esta relación dual con las revistas. Y recientemente, si tomamos en cuenta las tendencias que están empujando a la ciencia abierta, SciELO ha impulsado un repositorio de preprints, que entonces se estaría antecediendo a la publicación formal de los artículos. Está también explorando la dictaminación abierta de los preprints con el pre-review, y de manera lateral también está apoyando a aquellas revistas que quieran tener un repositorio de datos propio con Dataverse a través de el esquema de SciELO Data. Entonces este es, digamos, un flujo técnico, pero también tiene que ver con la gobernanza. Algunas ideas que yo lamentablemente no he podido estar en la reunión, pero me imagino que han sido centrales en esta cumbre global, es qué hacer con el APC. Aquí, bueno, voy a dar un listado de ideas. La red SciELO es un pionero global, mundial, del acceso abierto oro y diamante. En años recientes, y sobre todo en SciELO Brasil, ha aumentado el número de revistas que están aplicando cuotas de publicación, parcialmente para financiar parcialmente o totalmente el financiamiento de estas revistas. En la última reunión, el 25 aniversario, SciELO propone un nuevo término para cambiar la terminología del APS y llamarle Contribution to Cost of Publication. Es decir, el cobro para publicar, pero no en el sentido de enriquecer editoriales, sino de hacer sustentable a revistas que son no comerciales. En este sentido, SciELO no se opone al cobro de tarifas para publicar si por medio de estas tarifas se hace posible el sostenimiento de las revistas. Ciertamente, la mayor parte de las revistas de la red SciELO son publicadas por universidades y sociedades científicas, pero en muchos casos ha sido la adopción de este cobro de tarifa la que ha evitado que estas revistas sean adoptadas o integradas a las grandes editoriales tipo Elsevier, Springer, ustedes saben cuáles. SciELO también reconoce que en el caso de aquellas revistas con temáticas muy delimitadas o complicadas para ser sostenidas de manera pública, pues sí es recomendable el cobro para publicar bajo este esquema que no se está enriqueciendo una empresa editorial transnacional, sino haciendo sostenible una revista. La red SciELO participa, apoya el proyecto Diamas y otras iniciativas a favor del acceso abierto oro y diamante. Otro listado más, y prometo ir rápido. En relación a esta Federación Internacional de Acceso Abierto Diamante, aquí hay que dejar claro, la red SciELO se pronuncia por iniciativas que sean de abajo hacia arriba, así como opera la red SciELO. Esto es, SciELO no acepta alguna implementación que venga de arriba para abajo. Y SciELO se pronuncia por integrar ya los elementos en los que el mismo SciELO ha estado empujando, que forman parte de la ciencia abierta, que son los servidores preprints, la gestión de datos y ya la transparencia en la dictaminación. SciELO apuesta a colecciones, a que estos esquemas estén basados primeramente en colecciones de carácter nacional que operen con decisiones colectivas y que toda aquella interoperabilidad a nivel internacional en una futura o deseable federación de revistas diamante, pues sea coordinada o dirigida por organismos internacionales como sería la UNESCO. Esta interoperabilidad debe estar siempre basada en decisiones colectivas y no debe haber interferencia o imposición de una región sobre la otra. Toda metodología, tecnología debe siempre tener esta base muy fuerte de carácter nacional y en ese sentido la red SciELO se pronuncia o está disponible, está dispuesta para participar en una red a nivel de federación internacional. Y con esto yo dejo aquí mi intervención. Dijeron que teníamos que ser resumidos y bueno, quedo abierto a preguntas. Muchas gracias.
Great. Thank you very much, Antonio, for telling us about the experience of SciELO and also for providing some of the suggestions for the Federation of Diamond Open Access. We will now move on to our next speaker,
Okay.
Mochammad Tanzil Multazam.
Yes, correct.
From Indonesia. Please,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be in this panel. Thank you for Johan inviting me, and so I'm here with my friend, my colleague from Indonesia, meeting so many people, hearing so many initiatives, hearing so many platforms, and see so many logos that we never see before, yes, and we are just seeing here, and so we can come back to our country and make socialization of this meeting. So I want to share about the how Diamond Open Access Journal ecosystem in Indonesia, or how the Indonesian government govern. Yes, that's a journal. Next slide. Okay. So we first see that there is 20,000 journals now in Indonesia, and for the record, this amount is only 10,000 in 2020, so it's doubled in only 2 years plus, not 3 years, yes, doubled only 3 years. And 70% is our member in Relevant Journal Indonesia. And we have an accredited platform, and there is 7,000 already accredited. So for the Diamond Open Access Journal, for the DOIG data, there is 1K plus no fee of a journal, but I believe that there is more because in Garuda, we are a platform named Garuda, is all that journal in there is an open access. So all that 20,000 journal is an open access. So we believe there is more than 1K is the no author fee, yeah, no IPG. And the habit of the journal, maybe in all journal around the world, is after they get increase their level, they tend to make an IPC, except the journal published by the government and the journal published by the public university. So for that 3K, 3.1K publisher, this is the type of the publisher. Is this government agency is 100 plus university, and then there is Indonesia. There is religion education, like a foundation. They have a journal too, like for research in the religion scope. So they have a journal too as a publisher. There is a 129 as our members. And for the company, it's very small, only 100K revenue per year is very small. Maybe there is 10% is only on the 2 or 5 journal. And this is why that doubled. Yes, because our government is so active. Yes, so active. You can see there is since 2014 to 2020, there is simultaneous evolution of the platform. That simultaneous evolution of policy in Indonesia, according to the journal ecosystem. So this is make a lecturer or researcher or even university complaining about this, because the policy can be changed like twice a year. So that's a very frequent policy change regarding this journal. University now have a score, additional score, if they can publish a journal, they can manage a journal. Better that status, better the level, is better the score. If you are an editor, if you are a reviewer, you have an additional score, you can get opportunity to get a better grant if you have better score. So many lecturer and researcher want to be an editor, be a reviewer. If they not get invited, they create a journal. That's why there is a double. We call this a journal rush, I think. Yes, a journal rush in Indonesia. I think this journal rush is start in the 2020, since the Bima and Rama platform and the sister platform issued or by the Indonesian government. Because in that platform, this additional score is added. So this make that I call it is a journal rush. And now in 2022, there is a Sinta is version 3 that make that score doubled. I don't know what we might be in the 2024 or 5 years from now. Maybe a 15,000 journal from Indonesia. I don't think so. That might be, I think. Yes, this is the platform. Yes, the platform, the Bima platform is for research. The Arjuna is for accreditation. The Garuda is then an index for open access journal. The Sinta, this is the core of all that platform that show and assess and then make a score for all that platform gathered all in the Sinta. And for the Rama is the repository, so all repository gathered index in there, but now it's still a beta. That's why it's only few repository there, only like 300 repository. It's more than that because every university have repository, and Indonesia have 5.5K university and higher education. And I believe they all have a repository, and maybe in one university have a double and a 2 or 3 repository. That's why I estimate that the repository is more than 5K. This is the ecosystem in the Sinta or publication thing in Indonesia. So all gathered in the Sinta, and the Sinta will be exported to a promotion platform, to a grant platform, to the annual evaluation platform for the lecturer and for researcher. So now every lecturer and researcher, every university, like not very care about the QS, but very care about that Sinta score. And we now are going to this, our organization is Relawan Jurnal Indonesia. Why this connected to this journal RAS? Because the annexion of the online accreditation journal is 2014. After 2014, many editor, many publisher don't know how to manage journal online, don't know how to install an OJS, don't know how to manage a journal with using an online platform. So many private company, many course with high or expensive amount, like 5 million rupees for only 2 hours course, for 5 million rupees only 1 day, just only to study how to install OJS, how to manage OJS. That's why we are coming with this initiative in 2016. We gather with only 8 people. We educate editor near us, educate editor in our region. That editor will already educated, get training to other editor, then going like a snowball. And now we have 713 volunteer in the across Indonesia. We have 34 regional manager in the all 34 regional Indonesia. Indonesia have 34 region. And for the publisher under our wings is the 3.1K publisher is for Crossref. So the number in the right is the number of the our service, which is like the tutorial. We have made some 100 tutorial. We have an activity in the forum. We have even a platform to get training OJS for the newbie, for the novice, and all that for free. We're doing that all for free, and all the volunteer doing that for free. Now this is the example. That's our volunteer in the bottom, but it's only half of it. Is we have a annual meeting, or some with online in the once a month or 6 month, once a 6 month for the specific meeting or extraordinary meeting. And for the right is we have an representative in the DOIJ, ORCID, and Crossref. Now, I'm here now. I want to make a more connection, more networking to grow this ecosystem, grow this community. Thank you for me. Muchas gracias.
Great. Thank you very much for this Indonesian case, and it just contributes to what we were saying before, the big diversity that adds to the complexity of the different actors. So now we will go to Johan to see what your thoughts are around that. How do we take advantage of this diversity and of the complexity at hand? So the floor is yours, Johan. And please, if you can all speak a little bit slower so that our translators can keep up with the translation.
Yeah. Thank you. I came in last because I wanted to be able to comment on all the others. I don't have a particularly new contribution to make. I mean, Pierre and I made a contribution yesterday in terms of the pyramid, which needs to be knit, if I understand correctly, right, from a tangle. I mean, that's feasible. My wife knits, so I learned from her. So Yeah, I think it's entirely feasible to knit from a tangle. I've learned to untangle because, you know, I have to hold up my hands every once in a while to undo a tangle into a regular ball. So it's entirely feasible, I think. We could do exactly the same. We'll knit a pyramid from the tangle. But to come back to the contribution that we heard, I mean, you know, jokes apart, and I'll take them in no particular order. From Sharla, I think we learned a number of principles that the Federation should abide by. Principles, common agenda and vision, shared success. I mean, I call those principles, could call them principles. Shared success measures, mutually reinforcing complementarity of activities, continuous communication, and backbone support organization. I think that is definitely something that we have in mind. I mean, you know, I think I'll print those out and hang them over my bed. This is very useful, actually, because these are really principles that we should keep in mind. I mean, you know, an organization should live by such principles, at least the kind of organization that we have in mind. So, yeah, I'm sorry, looking at my notes here for other things. So one of the things, of course, of the other things that you said is that, of course, Lyrasis is contributing a lot to Diamond Open Access in terms of finding funding, right? Temporary funding. So one of the challenges that we have, of course, but we already discussed this, is how to transform that temporary funding into permanent funding, right? That's one of the challenges, I believe, that we have for infrastructure and governance. We are in this for the long haul. We need to transform scholarly communication in the long haul. But of course, in the short term, we need that temporary funding as well. But principles, that's what I associate with Sharla. What I associate with Tanja is something slightly different but complementary, namely the values. Values. What are the values that we honor? And so I think the notion of cooperatives is an interesting one that you mentioned as a kind of a model. I mean, there's various models of governance that I think we will have to look at. And you also pointed out a number of elements that the Global Diamond Federation can look at, namely align policies for the libraries, endorse norms and guidelines and practices, and support infrastructure. The values that you mentioned, I thought that was the most important contribution, are things like inclusiveness, open to all, right? Multilingualism, I think that's an important one. I mean, one of the things that we found that the Open Access Diamond Journal study found 3 years ago was exactly that. That was typical for Diamond Open Access journals. It's multilingualism and the diversity. So I think that is a value that we should hold very, very dearly. And then also the value, what Tanja called non-commercial, but that for diplomatic reasons I'm going to call the values, and positively, because I don't believe in negative definitions, I believe in positive definitions, and I'm going to call the value of community-driven approaches, if you don't mind, Tanja, yeah? So scholar-driven, the value of scholar-driven initiatives, because, I mean, that's again something that is typical for Diamond journals. They are scholar-driven, scholar-owned, and that is essential, I believe, for them. That doesn't mean that you cannot, buy a computer or that you cannot use services like typesetting or copy editing and pay for them, like you pay for your computer. But it does mean that, in fact, the scholars are in charge. That is essential, and that is a value in a way. And yeah, then fragility. And then you mentioned a number of threats. I think that we should also point those out. The threat of the tangle against the pyramid. We'll do our best, right? I mean, I think we should do our collective best, because this is also something that was underscored by Sharla. The difference between atomized and isolated, because those are words that I remember, versus collective and what was the other term you used? Collective and connected, yeah? And this is really about collective and connected, right? That is what we aim for, collective and connected. As isolated Diamond journals, each in our own disciplinary corner, editing a journal, we are weak. But when collectively we share the same values, we share the same principles, we can go forward. Together we are stronger, as Pierre already emphasized a few days ago. I'm going to keep Antonio for the last. I'm going to first go to Mochammad, who gives us an excellent example, in fact, how a large country like Indonesia can organize with very limited means in a way, but with very strong policies, an entire network at the national level. I think this shows really the power of policy and the power of a centralized approach. So not everything needs to be bottom up. Sometimes, good things can happen top down. This is an example of that. I think it's interesting. I'm not saying that everything should be top down, far from that, but there is some value, I think, in policy making. I mean, of course, I would say that. Of course, I would say that, right, as the executive director of Coalition S. But you see what I mean. I think this is really an example of how strong policy making can, in the absence of financial means, really come to very impressive results in terms of support for infrastructure, support for editors and reviewers. You saw that long group of yellow-shirted people there. I mean, that's an enormous group of volunteers you have there. I mean, I thought that was a very emotional image, actually, to see how many people there were that you've been able to motivate to do this, without any compensation. So I think there's a lesson in there for us all. So that is what I take from Mochammad. And then coming to Antonio, SciELO network is, of course, a very valuable governance model in terms of coordination and scientific committees, network for collective decisions. Of course, these are values that we can endorse, I'm sure, and accommodate. And they have, of course, an impressive 25 years of experience in, as I say, weaving the network. And this is, again, goes back to Tanja's tangle. You weave the network from the tangle into something that looks more like a pyramid. I also thought that the relationship between primary source and secondary source was quite interesting to see the relationship with what Pierre and I called yesterday, the journals on the one hand and the capacity center on the other. I was, however, a little bit concerned by Antonio's, and that's why I kept it for last, because I think that's a bit of contentious element. He mentioned that there are a number of journals that are in gold open access that have had to move to gold open access for financial reasons to survive. I'm not sure that I'm so happy with the idea of diamond journals moving to gold. This is, of course, something that we need to continue to discuss. Antonio also formulated a number of conditions that SciELO would formulate in order to join the federation. But I think it's clear that this federation is really about diamond. It's not about gold. And although I can understand that sometimes you have gold journals in transition to diamond as a temporary process, I mean, there are other regions in the world where this is the case, where, I know that at Open Edition you have journals that are not fully diamond yet. You have journals that are not fully diamond, you have moving paywall. But I think the end goal, and I think that can be tolerated, but there should at least be a commitment to the common goal that diamond is the end state. I think that is very important. I mean, of course, this should be done in a dialogue. I mean, I'm looking forward to having a dialogue about these things, but we should understand each other. This is about diamond, and this is not about diamond and gold, as it was formulated. But I look forward to continued discussion. This is clearly something that needs to be discussed further, and I'll stop there.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for this summary of the discussions in the panel. Great, so I'm looking at how much time do we have for this? Do we have like some 20 minutes to discuss? Maybe we are a little bit late, but we did start a little bit late. So let's move on with the discussion and see where it takes it. So I'll open the floor to our audience, please. The floor is yours.
Tanja Hernández de Invest in Open Infrastructure. Mi pregunta es en particular para Sharla y para Johan y para Tanja también. ¿Cuáles son los retos de representación de una federación global? Digamos, tenemos las distinciones tradicionales del norte global versus el sur global, pero ¿cómo dimensionan una federación global y quién se sentaría en la mesa a negociar con los, digamos, con las entidades comerciales, editoriales? ¿Cómo ven, cómo podría ser ese espectro?
Okay, good. Do you want to reply? Well, let me see how many hands we have just to have an idea. Okay, so maybe we can go with the reply and then we'll get back to the audience. I have 2 hands there. Go ahead.
Before being able to reply, just perhaps a clarification. What negotiation do you mean? Do you mean how we changed the power balance between that, or okay? Well, I think it's a collective action. The more we work together, the stronger we can get there. And I think it's going to make the shift one by one. It's not something that is going to happen in a real negotiation. It's by changing the behaviors and this has been said this morning also, we need more clear data. We need a more clear oversight, how we can follow this shift, really show the visibility of how we change step by step. And I think if we do that and collectively invest in Diamond and in Open, there will be no negotiation. It may happen by changing the behavior, but not in negotiation. That would be my response to this.
I think we have to be really careful of the perfect being the enemy of the good. We're competing against entities that have billions of dollars, thousands of staff that are distributed around the world, that have all a common mission, shared goals, and coordinated efforts at a centralized level. And so we need to act in a similar type fashion, but one that's driven by principles and values, that is community run. And we need to start where we are. This global federated network isn't just going to emerge and be perfect and beautiful right from the beginning. I'm having conversations with similar type programs to the one I administer. It's just a funding infrastructure. It's not providing a whole lot of education to journals, what Diamos is wanting to provide in different layers of support. We're not doing that yet, but by working together, we can scale, we can help amplify each other's efforts in what we're doing. We can also talk about the others, like SciELO, like Redalyc, and bring that into the conversation. What I'm imagining for the Global Federated Network is who exists now? Who's in this room now, or in the Zoom, right? And those who may not be able to be here, but that are in the same line of thinking. Let's start with us. Let's start with those on the margins who really need help. They don't have, their only option might be a commercial publisher. We don't want them to go there. What other places can they go to get support? Library publishers. Can they go to university presses? Can they get their institution to help provide them with support? Where can we start now? And then for those who are already in the profiteering side of there are good people over there in the journals. There are good people on those editorial boards. They're doing their very best in what they understand and what they're supposed to be doing in their career. They are stuck in a system that looks like the status quo. So how do we create, based on who are in the room now, how we start now, something that looks more attractive than what they are existing in their status quo? And that's what I'm envisioning, is that we start with the champions now. We build that slowly, we let it evolve based on all our needs, try to preserve the the uniqueness of everything everybody brings to this. We don't need to be all the same. We shouldn't. But hold on to that and then bring people in as they're ready.
Great, thank you. Do you want to add, Johanna?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood the question, but entirely. But I think it was about how are you going to do this, right? How are you going to grow this? I think yesterday already I mentioned some of the elements for this. I think, you know, there's a reason why we divided this up in these 4 layers. Especially, for instance, the regional layer is something that allows for a lot of variation, because we know that world regions are very different in the way they work. And this is, so there's no need, I think, to impose an order. This is where I believe that bottom-up approaches are good. You know, you have to look at the local situation, the local legislation, the local structure of education and research, and on the basis of those conditions, you work something out. Right? I mean, like I said yesterday, in Europe, we are lucky to have the European Union and the EC funding, right? And that's very regulatory in a way, it's very top-down, but it also helps us, right? I mean, I have the pleasure of working in the DIAMAS project, and there's lots of people in there who are working together in an absolutely marvelous fashion to get the results that we want and understand Diamond Open Access in Europe. And that's a top-down initiative, because, you know, I mean, there was a call for tender for let's do for a project, and we applied to it. But the project itself is really bottom-up. It's really all these volunteers from 23 organizations working together in Europe to get the job done, you know. So, but that works in Europe, but that's not necessarily going to work in the United States, for instance. This morning when I mentioned, oh, maybe you should do a project of $1.5 million, you know, people said, well, where are we going to get that money? So, you know, the reality is different. You don't get $1.5 million grants in North America, apparently, in the way that you get them, that you can obtain them in Europe. And in Indonesia, the situation is still different. And Redalyc America and SciELO show us that the situation in Latin America is different. So these are challenges that we need to respond to in a region-specific fashion, in the same way that also for countries we need to react in country-specific fashion and you know, build that tapestry, right? Weave that tapestry from the tangle. That's the goal.
Great.
I'm going to pursue you with that metaphor for the rest of your life, Tanja.
Nice. Okay, we continue with the questions up there. Yes, Bianca.
Hola, yo más bien quería agregar desde mi experiencia trabajando con revistas. Yo fui editora de revistas 15 años y la realidad de Latinoamérica les podría ayudar muchísimo, porque nosotros, contrario a lo que Johan nos expuso junto con Pierre y que Tanja ahora nos contó, las revistas de Latinoamérica, que siempre hemos sido diamante, ¿verdad? Empezamos de abajo hacia arriba. ¿Y cómo empezamos de abajo hacia arriba? Nosotros decimos que somos SOILA, esperemos que se lo traduzcan bien. Ajá, porque éramos los filólogos, somos secretarios, somos informáticos, somos diagramadores. Entonces, con esos pocos recursos que teníamos y tienen en este momento las universidades, hemos sido muy creativos. A mí me tocó, por ejemplo, empezar una revista electrónica hace como 20 años en un Joomla, y después me pasé a un Open Journal System. ¿Y qué hemos hecho nosotros? Reinventarnos desde abajo hacia arriba para lograr que nuestras revistas sean independientes y autónomas. Y cuando digo eso es que no dependamos de recursos externos, sino inventemos nuestros propios sistemas en las universidades para que, por ejemplo, el departamento de tecnología me dé servidores para el Open Journal System, para que el departamento de publicaciones me diagrame las revistas. Y en ese sentido hemos ido generando modelos que protegen las revistas diamante. Por ejemplo, yo sacando números le decía a mis autoridades, Con 2 APC que se le pagan, por ejemplo, a Nature, yo pago un salario de tiempo completo de un editor en mi país. Entonces, nosotros hemos generado, por lo menos mi experiencia, que yo ahora trabajo soy servidora de revistas, soy asesora de revistas, hemos generado 3 pilares fundamentales. 1, normativa para proteger la revista Diamante, donde ningún editor puede estar nombrado ad honorem. 2, capacitación. Y 3, la infraestructura tecnológica. Y en ese sentido, ahora hablando con Paola, mi compañera de Argentina, decía, una experiencia importante para Europa sería volver a recuperar sus revistas, tal vez no generar más revistas, sino aquellas revistas que han sido cedidas, que esas experiencias, por lo menos en Costa Rica, no las hemos vivido, sería importante pues volver a traerlas. Perdón si me extiendo, pero creo que cuando Tanja dijo, ¿qué hacemos? Bueno, Tanja, humildemente creo que nosotros desde Latinoamérica podríamos enseñarle algo de experiencia y complementar las experiencias. De hecho, para eso estamos aquí en esta cumbre, ¿verdad? Y entonces, yo siempre digo que las revistas, sobre todo concebidas desde Latinoamérica, son espacios de encuentro no solo para los científicos, sino incluso para nuestros propios estudiantes. Yo le cuento, una revista como Educar, una compañera que está acá, tiene estudiantes de bibliotecología, de informática, de diseño gráfico, ayudándoles en sus labores. Y eso les va a servir a los mismos estudiantes a tener experiencia, pero incluso los preparamos para hacer relevo de próximos editores. Entonces, imagínense que si todos lográramos, y por ahí Johan se me acercó y me dijo un día de estos, hagamos una red de revistas Diamante donde compartamos buenas prácticas. Bueno, yo creo que humildemente aquí está la experiencia de Latinoamérica que ha sobrevivido con pocos recursos, pero que empezamos de esta forma. Entonces, yo le invito a que tal vez, quizás no solo conmigo, aquí hay un montón de líderes latinoamericanos que nos hemos reinventado y con números también hemos convencido a nuestras autoridades de cómo seguir protegiendo nuestras revistas diamantes. Imagínense, si todas las revistas fueran diamantes, es probable que la reducción de las suscripciones y de los APC fueran tan significativas que nosotros no tendríamos que ni siquiera conversar sobre el tema de que no se debe comercializar el conocimiento. Era un pequeño comentario.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that comment. We will go to the next couple of questions and then go back to the panel to finalize the discussion. So the hands, there was somebody here and then Pierre.
Marcin Byczyński. I have a question because I had an impression that you were talking about atomization, that there are still a lot of journals that are functioning, but yet they are not included in the OJS platforms. They are just functioning locally. We have plenty of OJS platforms, the open infrastructure, but yet because of some reasons, it might be closed. I mean, the open infrastructure might be closed for the journals that are outside the institutions hosting them. For example, we might have university OJS platforms, but they are for the university journals. That's why we have a lot of Diamond Open Access journals that are academic journals. Do you see any chances for opening this infrastructure for the Diamond Open Access journals that are like outside of this OJS ecosystem? Or maybe there is like an idea about including some kind of your policy regulations to make to enable the other journals to be included in this ecosystem of OJS platforms.
Thank you. We'll collect all these comments and questions and then I'll get back to you. So Pierre. Sorry, right there.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais jouer moi aussi le jeu du multilinguisme en parlant dans ma langue, ce qui me facilite les choses.
Très bien.
Merci. Je vais parler cette fois-ci avec mon chapeau et mon titre de directeur adjoint d'Open Edition. Et je voudrais faire une remarque sur l'utilisation et la mobilisation des termes de Nord global et de Sud global dans les discussions que nous avons pour la création de cette fédération globale que nous voulons construire ensemble. Je pense que les termes de Nord global et Sud global ont une forme de validité, ils représentent une réalité, mais cette représentation a des limites aussi. Et je voudrais donner 2 exemples pour montrer les limites de la mobilisation du Nord global et du Sud global comme 2 entités qui s'opposent. Premièrement, on a donné des exemples ont été donnés de revues qui se sont développées, de revues diamants, donc ici au Mexique ou en Amérique latine, qui se sont développées avec très très peu de moyens. Je pense que lorsque j'entends ces récits de revues qui se soutiennent et se développent avec très très peu de moyens, cela connecte avec ma propre expérience depuis 20 ans. Et je pense qu'on pourrait demander à Marin Dacos, qui est ici, qui a plus de 20 ans à créer revue.org avec très très peu de moyens et avec une infrastructure qui s'est montée pour soutenir des revues qui n'avaient aucun moyen aussi et qui en ont toujours très très peu. Donc ce que je veux dire simplement, c'est que mon expérience personnelle me conduit à penser ou à ressentir une proximité plus grande, moi qui suis du Nord global, avec certaines personnes du Sud global, qu'avec d'autres personnes du Nord global qui sont dans des situations qui n'ont rien à voir avec la mienne, qui vivent des expériences professionnelles qui n'ont rien à voir avec les miennes. Donc ça me semble relativement important. Je voudrais donner un autre exemple concret. Hier soir ou avant-hier soir, je ne sais plus, parce que cette conférence est tellement riche qu'on ne sait plus tellement quand est-ce qu'on est dans la semaine, mais en tout cas, un soir, nous avons eu la chance de visiter les locaux de Redalyc, le bâtiment de Redalyc. Et je peux vous dire que lorsque j'ai visité le bâtiment de Redalyc, je me croyais dans les bâtiments d'Open Edition. Donc nous avons une proximité, même si nous n'appartenons pas à la même hémisphère. Voilà, c'était un point que je voulais mobiliser.
Merci beaucoup, Pierre. Merci. Et une dernière question.
Bien, esta pregunta es para Antonio. En la presentación que él hace, plantea que SciELO apoya el pago por publicar siempre y cuando esos ingresos sirvan para financiar las revistas. Me llama la atención porque sin duda en América Latina casi todas las revistas, por no decir todas, las editan las universidades, ¿cierto? En cambio, sí me parece que el pagar por publicar sí contribuye, a mi juicio, respeto la apreciación que los asistentes tengan y el mismo Antonio, pagar por publicar me parece que contribuye a la inequidad y es una forma de favorecer al modelo dominante, en particular a las editoriales comerciales. No sé qué opines sobre el particular. Gracias.
Merci, thank you very much.
¿Comento?
Okay, yes, please,
¿Respondo?
go ahead,
Sí.
Antonio.
Obviamente, el modelo ideal y el más extendido, afortunadamente, en América Latina es el diamante. Simplemente hay una diversidad de casos, de situaciones. No todas las revistas, al parecer, están pudiendo sostenerse con financiamiento de universidades públicas. Ya han optado, al parecer, preferentemente en Brasil, por este financiamiento a través de cobro por publicar, en el entendido de que la cantidad aquí se importa, no es una cantidad estratosférica definida por una posición monopólica, apalancada en un factor de impacto, en la cual está por juego el índice H y el SciScore y el factor de impacto, sino es para la sustentabilidad de una revista. En ese sentido yo pienso que no se debe satanizar, porque se habla de comercialización, como si cobrar un servicio, como llevar a una imprenta, a una revista impresa, fuera un pecado. En la economía de mercado la gente necesita vivir, necesita tener un ingreso para sostenerse. No es comercializar para enriquecerse, es comercializar para pagar un trabajo, es cobrar un trabajo. En ese sentido, a mí el trabajo voluntario me parece muy generoso, pero no me parece sustentable. La gente necesita cobrar, necesita una profesión. Los cuadros editoriales necesitan profesionalizarse, necesitan un ingreso. La gente requiere estabilidad laboral, estabilidad financiera. Y así como muchos periódicos o revistas de izquierda, por ejemplo, vendían una suscripción, no era algo malo. La suscripción era para sostener la revista. En este momento, en la era electrónica, hay un modelo que para publicar pues, puede ser válido cobrar para sostener esta publicación. Puede ser, desde el punto de vista que haya una posición muy dogmática también en el otro extremo. Obviamente yo estaría de acuerdo, yo que tengo un puesto en la universidad, vivo con una quincena, un salario seguro, yo estoy a favor de la publicación de Amante, pero entiendo que no siempre es posible.
Thank you, Antonio. And I'll turn to the panel for the last feedbacks and comments, please. Johan, you want to start? No?
Yes,
Tanja,
I
please
would
go
like to react. Yes, please. I would like to react to our colleague from Costa Rica and what Pierre just said also, because maybe I did not explain in detail how we work and with whom we work, but all you said, I feel actually a lot of proximity. And actually, I wanted to talk in French. Je voulais parler en français pour
Allez-y.
vivre aussi le multilinguisme. Pardon, s'il vous plaît, si vous pouvez juste écouter la traduction. Donc, je voulais juste dire que les revues avec lesquelles nous travaillons, ce sont aussi des petites structures comme ça, ancrées dans les universités, dans les départements, avec très peu de moyens. Et ce sont des revues qui font beaucoup de bénévolat, de la même façon que Catherine a parlé de ça ce matin, un e-scholarship. Vraiment, on vit, je pense, les mêmes défis de ces revues-là qui sont très fragiles, qui ont une année un budget spécial reçu d'un fonds XYZ, mais l'année prochaine, ils ne le reçoivent plus et ça met en danger la poursuite des activités éditoriales. Donc, nous avons vraiment beaucoup des problèmes similaires dans le nord et dans le sud et je pense que oui, nous avons intérêt de parler beaucoup plus ensemble de ces enjeux-là et quand nous, on parle de libre accès diamant et de poursuivre cette voie-là, je pense que c'est surtout parce que nous essayons de faire en sorte que ces revues-là montent en puissance ou que ça soit pas que ces revues-là ne ferment pas parce que l'année prochaine, elles n'ont plus les moyens de poursuivre leurs activités ou qu'ils ne chargent pas l'année prochaine les APC ou encore qu'il n'y a pas un éditeur commercial qui les approche et qui les achète. Donc ça, c'est des cas que nous vivons sur le terrain au Canada, que Taylor & Francis and Wiley and so on arrivent, approchent les revues et que tout d'un coup, la bibliothèque qui a soutenu cette revue-là via l'hébergement OGS avec du soutien à leurs activités, etc., l'année prochaine paye pour la revue parce qu'elle a été acquise par Wiley ou Taylor & Francis, etc. Donc c'est vraiment très similaire, mais je suis complètement d'accord sur le fait que nous devons nous parler plus pour échanger ces expériences puis être beaucoup plus fortes ensemble.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Parfait.
While we are sharing, so even in the United States, we all suffer from an uneven distribution of wealth in this world, and it's not at a country level. In the United States, we are deficient in centralization. I'm so envious of many of these countries that you represent, where you have access to centralized funding and resources. And yes, there's a lot of money in the United States, but it's all over the place. And not everyone who has that money has the power to use it the way that they want. And so here I represent a country that has 3,500 higher ed institutions. We have 120 library consortia alone in just the United States. We have all of our different states all have different laws on how the public universities are funded. There are so many universities in the United States right now that are merging or closing down because they don't have the funding, because they're getting defunded by our government. So I'm working with journals through OACIP, so only 11. It's very small. I have one that's a society that they need a lot of money comparatively because every year to manage their operations because they have full-time staff. They have a legacy that's trusted by their community they serve and what kind of quality, what they produce, and it's been really interesting to learn that something similar might cost differently because in the end, what we're talking about here are issues around labor. The cities, when you go and live in a city, even in the US, you get paid more. It costs more to live there. And so those publishers, those institutions, the journals, they need more money to be able to pay the people that work there just for cost of living. We can't just make everybody look the same and all journals cost the same. We also have a scholar-led journal that we funded. They only needed $12,000 US a year. That was it. Very, very small amount. I know there are some that run on much less, but that was like a huge thing for them. They were able to do more issues. They were able to engage with their community more, build on that. They were able to do more, and they are. It's really exciting. Then there are those places in the world, what we're talking about here as far as the Global Federation, that don't have access to funding infrastructures like what we have or what's being built elsewhere. So we do also have some journals that are not based in the United States. We have a journal that's based in the UK that we're trying to raise money for. It's a small association in the UK that's always published Diamond, and they're trying to cover costs. We also are trying to fund a journal right now that is based in India. And very similarly, they have actually the way that they do their editorial process, they're trying to help their scholars write better. So they actually provide training on how to write, how to do better, and they have this whole education program that's part of the funding of the journal, and they have been funding it out of their own pockets for years. They've whittled down their personal savings, and we were their last hope before they were thinking about maybe doing APCs. And I'm having trouble getting funding for that, although there are 10, I think 11 institutions in the US that have said, yes, we will support this. And this includes Yale University, Princeton University. I mean, these are reputable institutions that don't spend their money lightly. So we have these inequities. It's all over. And so we have these shared problems. What can we do to learn from that? How are we dealing it within our own geographical areas that may apply elsewhere?
Thanks so much. That's all, Mochammad? A couple of last comments. Are you good?
Yeah. Okay. I want to share about our experience about this funding and sustainability. So our relevant journal Indonesia is volunteering, but actually when they go to somewhere else, when they make a tutorial offline, we give some money to them. That where is this money came from? So our relevant journal Indonesia there is no funding that fund us. We don't get fund from government. We don't get fund from corporation. But we have a side business. We have a property that revenue or generating income to our organization. Where is that money to buy from? So from small side business like selling merchandise for first, and then grow up to selling book, and grow up to selling agency for Turnitin, plagiarism platform, Grammarly, etc. For Asian community is still opportunity to make some business. And etc. to the now we have our sponsoring organization of Crossref. We get the membership, and then we have the revenue income from that. And then we get that revenue, we save it, and we buying property and get revenue income from that. Even we have some fund in the obligation too, so we get some kind of coupon for our organization. So our object goal is in 10 years, maybe in the 5 years, we have our own trust fund or endowment fund, so we can make this organization sustain forever. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for the great set. I think we have to stop now. We will have more time after the little break, 15 minutes break. We will have time to continue, but thanks again. Lots of very good ideas, comments, suggestions for how to create possibly this federated network. Thanks very much to our panelists. Many thanks to our audience as well. This is a great place really to exchange on some of these issues, so it's great to see that exchanges are already happening.